It is my singular honor and privilege to address this inaugural public procurement conference and awards ceremony running under the theme Unlocking Zimbabwe's Economic Potential through Public Procurement. As we build our motherland, Zimbabwe, guided by our development philosophy, nyika inovakwa nevene vayo. Inclusive public procurement is critical in the delivery of quality services and the overall performance of government ministries, departments, and agencies. This conference is thus timely and resonates with the Second Republic's unwavering thrust to realize sustainable development and inclusive economic growth for our people, which leaves no one and no place behind. Our economy has recovered. We are now challenging ourselves to grow the economy. In the wake of the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and other global shocks, we must strengthen our national resolve to build back better. It is equally critical that we scale up our country's internal capacities across all sectors. To this end, public procurement must be viewed more holistically, not only as a public administration tool to purchase the needed goods and services, but also as a vehicle to lift many of our people from poverty into prosperity. At an international level, under the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the promotion of sustainable public procurement will help our country realize these goals, specifically SDG 12.7 and SDG 16.6, which target public procurement. Let me, from the onset, express my gratitude to the Buy Zimbabwe Trust for organizing this event, which follows the organization's 10th anniversary commemorations in May 2021. I'm happy to say I've been associated with the Buy Zimbabwe from inception. I further commend the broad topics which will be covered during this conference. I trust that the various presentations will enrich stakeholders to effectively play their part in the development of our country for win-win outcomes. Further discussions at this forum should ensure that government, business, and other stakeholders are of a common understanding towards accelerating our country's industrialization, modernization, and economic growth. In the past, because of our colonial history, most African independent countries, including Zimbabwe, look to the West or the developed world for support to develop ourselves, forgetting that it was Africa which developed them, which means we have capacity to develop ourselves without them. Equally, the implementation of the local content strategy must be harnessed towards promoting the Made in Zimbabwe. Buy Zimbabwe and Build Zimbabwe initiative for the speedy attainment of our country's vision 2030. Yes, it is true that we don't need to invent the wheel. But to develop, we need people, and Zimbabwe's people. To develop, you need the resources, and Zimbabwe has the resources. To develop, you need agricultural land, and we have it. To develop, we need the water. And in the region, we have the biggest number of water bodies in Zimbabwe. And to develop, we need to be patriotic about ourselves. We need to be united. We need a peaceful environment where we focus on development and not on destruction and violence. So those things are not out of reach. We are the people. This is our time to leave behind a legacy of development, developing our country as a people, as a generation. It is gratifying, however, to note that the various economic reforms being championed by my administration, coupled with concerted efforts of organizations such as the Buy Zimbabwe Trust, has seen locally produced goods now dominating shelf spaces. Recently, when I was launching a mall in the Highlands, I was impressed by the degree of products that are made in Zimbabwe. The Minister of Industry told me that we now command about 80% of domestic products in our supermarkets' shelves. Congratulations. A few years ago, we were around 35%. And within 4 years, we've moved from 35% to about 80%. This is remarkable. To consolidate this trend, my government remains committed to fostering an enabling business environment and availing the requisite support to increase capacity utilization in our country's manufacturing sector. We have been persuaded as government that we have power to support those business entities whose thrust in business is in sync with the vision of the country. Research and development, as well as the registration of patents, support for innovation and inventions are being scaled up in a bid to have more locally made goods and services. Since the advent of the Second Republic, we have introduced innovation hubs at all our institutions of higher learning. We have created facilities for our girls and boys who are at universities, created infrastructure and the funding for our talented boys and girls to exercise, actualize their talents by taking out what is in their minds and creating a service or a product funded by government. Beyond that, we have also created industrial parks where government again provides funding for these young girls and boys can actually make their product commercially so that the product can enter the market. The Second Republic, therefore, is determined to support an entrepreneurial and innovative culture that will see our own young people answer the day-to-day needs of our country's fast evolving and modernizing socio-economic landscape. What I'm saying is that the challenges which we face, the needs which we want, will challenge our young generation to give solutions to those needs and those challenges. And the government has a duty to facilitate them to exercise and actualize their talents. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, public procurement must be deployed responsibly and in the national interest, not only as an empowerment vehicle, but most importantly, to accelerate sustainable national development. For instance, in the past, we did not think that you guys and ladies who are seated here can build dams. We thought those can only be done by people from the first world. We did not think that you seated in here could build roads of international standards. But we thought this can only be achieved by foreign companies from the first world. We then decided to test you. In the end, it is the companies testing us. Because it is the duty now, we realize, of government to capacitate companies, our local companies, to do the modernization and industrialization of our economy, of our country. And let me say and confess that I think we are doing the right thing. We now have rural industrialization unfolding every other week. I cannot be able to feel every single invitation I get about opening and commissioning new products, initiatives countrywide. They're just too many for me. As a result of allowing our people to imagine, our people to express themselves. It is against this background that all public procurement entities are exhorted to utilize public resources in the most efficient, transparent, accountable, responsive, and ethical manner. To achieve this, we need Druswas who are ethical, who are responsive, who are accountable, and who are transparent and efficient. In this regard, I congratulate local contractors for the sterling and professional work being undertaken in the construction and rehabilitation of highways and roads. Only last week, I had the opportunity to drive along the Harare-Masvingo Highway en route to an engagement in the Great Zimbabwe monuments in Masvingo, from here to Masvingo. The road is indeed impressive and a testimony of our abilities as a people, which all these years were buried. But it's like mushroom coming up now. Everywhere we discover talent among our people. This culture of building our own country by ourselves, brick upon brick, stone upon stone, must transcend all sectors of the economy. I was happy to observe during the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair that more and more of our local companies are producing quality and international competitive goods and services. We must unapologetically continue to grow our own food. Be proud of your own food. Your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather survived on the food produced here. And let us be proud of our own food. Let us produce what we wear. Let us produce all the elements we use for our lives. Build our own dams, build our own factories. Yes, of course, we may not have global capital, we may not have the skills or the competencies, but where we lack them, we import them. Our own health system, our education infrastructure, which we have changed to 5.0. We as Zimbabweans can do it. Nothing is impossible, I assure you. Ladies and gentlemen, as will be outlined by the various ministers who will address this conference, vast opportunities exist in our public entities across all sectors of the economy. This follows the bold, decisive and revolutionary decision of the Second Republic under my leadership to fundamentally transform Zimbabwe through the awarding of procurement contracts and tenders to local enterprises. It is unrevolutionary and unpalatable to say these areas should be reserved for our people only. But it is good. We should, however, have a structure and a system of promoting our own people to dominate in these areas ourselves. Because this helps us to create and domesticate employment as well as improve our skills levels while also saving the country from the flight of foreign currency. I have recognized that public procurement is one of the government activities most vulnerable to corruption. The volume of transactions and the financial interests at stake compound corruption risks, which are exacerbated by the complexity of the process, the close interaction between public officials and businesses, and the multitude of stakeholders. In implementing this deliberate policy of my government, it is imperative that our public procurement ensures value for money, whilst entrenching a culture of competition and promoting transparency, accountability, as well as the prudent use of public resources. Additionally, fair and just business practices must be ingrained in our procurement cycles. All stakeholders should work harder to realize robust procurement frameworks and systems that ultimately deliver quality public goods and services. It is noteworthy that the conference and awards ceremony comes at a time when the Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe is working on a number of reforms to plug out corruption. Due diligence and meticulous administration of tenders across government ministries, departments and agencies, public entities and state-owned enterprises must remain key components of public procurement. Under the Second Republic, deserving, capable and competent service providers with demonstrable local content should be awarded tenders and contracts. Meanwhile, the adoption and the use of e-procurement and e-payment systems must be speeded up to lessen face-to-face interface between bidders and those doing the tendering process. You look at facts and the statistics and you make a decision. ICTs and administrative compliance measures must be deployed to eliminate interface, collusion, bid rigging, or fraud by procurement officials. Wherever corruption occurs in the public procurement process, the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, together with other law enforcement agencies, must decisively apply the law without fear or favor. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in the spirit of leaving no one and no place behind, my government is committed to the promotion of inclusive public procurement to help Zimbabweans start, build, and grow viable businesses. However, it is most unfortunate to date that women, youth entrepreneurs, and the disabled face disproportionately complex and interconnected barriers to accessing equal opportunities in public procurement. We must, as stakeholders, tap into public procurement for women and youth empowerment to unleash the full potential of these important demographics. This will also go a long way towards providing a springboard for advancement, economic inclusion, and the participation of women and youth in the mainstream economy. I therefore urge stakeholders in our economy, in the public procurement cycle, to implement responsive strategies to curb the legal and the regulatory hurdles, socio-cultural biases, and the lack of skills, networks, and financing, which limit the involvement of women and the youth in public procurement. Additionally, the public procurement system must be accessible to SMEs through responsive procurement policies such as the use of quotas for suppliers. It is also critically important to close the information gap and build capacities through training on certification, registration, and equipping suppliers with management tools, among other aspects. This will help broaden those who can participate in public procurement. I further challenge the Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe to refine the procurement policy and procedures to attract and ensure long-term commitment by investors. PRAZ is directed to be a catalyst and not an impediment to our national development agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, I commend Buy Zimbabwe Trust for recognizing the efforts being made by both the public and private buyers towards promoting and supporting local procurement. Procuring from local companies will indeed go a long way in empowering our entrepreneurs and in inculcating a culture of innovation, production, and productivity, while creating and broadening the national wealth base. We must create wealth. We must create the comfort we need ourselves, not borrow it. In conclusion, it is my expectation that the deliberations that will take place during this Buy Zimbabwe Public Procurement Conference and awards ceremony will enrich our public procurement policies. I think it is critically important for you to be open and state what you think are the constraints in our current system. We who participate in these procurement processes have the duty to make it work better. Finally, I congratulate those receiving awards for their outstanding role in promoting the growth of our local industry and economy as a whole. Congratulations, Makorokoto and Thope. Keep it up. Keep the good work. With these remarks, it is now my singular honor and privilege to declare the Buy Zimbabwe 2022 Public Procurement Conference and Awards ceremony officially opened. God bless you all. God bless Zimbabwe.